Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor and we're going to get in it. Michael Branch put this out. The United States Treasury and a number of top U.S. financial regulators suggested new rules to make it easier for the Federal Reserve to designate non-bank institutions as systemically important, making it easier to supervise and regulate them. Remember this, folks. The United States Treasury has the power through, is it FSOC or the other one's, I think, OFAC? They have the power to basically wave a magic wand and do whatever they want to do under the guise of a national emergency. Don't forget that. Now, this was said another way here. New U.S. Treasury wants power to designate non-bank institutions as systemically important. And this guy says, here we go. Does anybody remember the Jim Rickards Ice 9 video from a while back? Remember when he said this?
So what did these elites want from your contact at BlackRock?
Basically, they want to classify BlackRock as too big to fail. The technical term is Systemically Important Financial Institution, or SIFI. That designation normally applies to banks, such as Bank of America. If your bank gets the SIFI label, it means the government will bail you out first in a crisis. But it also means you must turn over control of your bank until the crisis subsides. In this case, they're trying to reclassify BlackRock, an asset manager, as too big to fail. If they succeed, they'll be able to freeze BlackRock when the crisis hits. BlackRock clients won't be able to sell. They won't be able to buy either. Their accounts will go dark indefinitely. And the elite operatives will take control of BlackRock's assets remotely via the internet.
So what did these elites want?
Well, we're starting to see a lot of things that were predicted long ago. I want you to look at this. This is Peter St. Onge. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. I'm good at butchering names on this channel. But I want you to listen to at least part of what he says here. He's talking about stunning collapse in U.S. dollar. Listen to this.
A top currency analyst warned last week that de-dollarization is happening faster than people realize. Indeed, that the dollar has already suffered a, quote, stunning collapse. Meanwhile, separate data from central banks around the world confirm that after decades of complacency, the landscape is shifting. The warning came from former Morgan Stanley analyst Stephen Jen, who finds that adjusting for price changes reveals the true speed of de-dollarization, specifically that the dollar share went from 73% in 2001 to 55% in 2021, at which point it fell off a cliff, losing market share 10 times faster. The dollar plunged 8 percentage points in share in a single year to just 47%. So we lost about double the entire share of the Chinese yuan. And at that pace, the US dollar would be eclipsed in, about 6 years. So what happened in 2022? Simple, sanctions. Last year, the US froze $300 billion in Russian central bank dollars. That's about $4 trillion in US terms, controlling for GDP. Keep in mind, these were Russia's sovereign dollars. They, and everybody else in the world, thought of them like gold. Now, this was something we hadn't even done during the Cold War, during the height of the Cold War, with hot proxy wars all over the world, because we were run by adults. Why did Biden do it? The goal was to cause bank panics and crash the Russian economy, perhaps to set off mass unemployment and civil unrest. Of course, it backfired. Instead, sending countries around the world in panicked flight from the dollar, lest the U.S. wake up one morning after a spicy night on the town with some flashy new lobbyist and decide to collapse their country too. Perhaps ending in their president being torn into travel-sized pieces by a mob like in Libya. Of course, it was one thing to do this to Libya, but here was a real country, and the weapon of choice was very precisely their own sovereign dollars. And so, overnight, the US dollar went from the world's rock-solid store of value to a political football held hostage to whichever lobbyist or activist caught Joe Biden's eye this week. Where did all those dollars go to? That flight went to the next best thing, the yen, the euro, and to gold.
There you go. And then there's this, just in 19 new countries submit membership requests to join BRICS, challenging the U.S. dollar's global dominance. And then you have this is from the Zimbabwe thing we talked about in the last video. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is set to launch gold-backed digital currency in an effort to reduce reliance on the U.S. dollars. As the nation grapples with soaring inflation, they permitted its citizens to utilize gold as legal. You'll remember that video from a few months back where their, I guess their president or prime minister was holding up the gold, and it says in a strategic move last August, they announced this. Finally, in October 2022, we learned global mining companies operating in Zimbabwe were required to pay a portion of their royalties in refined metal rather than cash, a slow-moving golden train. I like that. Well, you know the drill here. Glint is one of my sponsors, and gold is money. It is God's money. And if you have a Glint account, you can get a debit MasterCard. It's the only place I know of where you can have some of your gold in a Glint account where it becomes spendable gold. The link is in the description of this video at the very top. Go check it out. And then listen to this. This is this lady, she's founder and CEO of Stronghold, talking Ripple and Stellar.
Institution that allows fiat on-ramps to distribute blockchain technologies such as Ripple and Stellar and Interledger. This is available via APIs, so developers, I think such as yourselves, can embed it into their applications and allow users to, integrate with USD or we have 8 fiat currencies coming on board and reach different countries. But this basically allows users to, interact with your ecosystem. So,
all right. And then there was this from, I'm getting a phone. I get phone calls every time I start every time I try to start a video. I could sit here for 2 hours and not do a video and just look through Twitter and the internet and not get a phone call. But then the second I start it, that's when I get a phone call. I've already gotten 2. Big news, Franklin Templeton's on-chain, what is this? Franklin, let me look at this. Franklin Templeton, let me follow them. On-chain U.S. government money fund is now available on the Stellar network through the Benji Investments app, the first mutual fund to use public blockchain technology for transactions and share ownership. Then Perry Ann Boring from the Chamber of Digital Commerce was on CNBC. Listen to this.
Digital assets are a spectrum of assets. There are digital asset commodities. There's digital asset securities. There's digital asset currencies. There's payment systems. There's NFTs. There's digital collectibles. There are many different types of digital assets that there are many different regulatory agencies that have jurisdiction over this space. That clip you just played with Chairman Patrick McHenry grilling the SEC Chairman Gary Gensler really gets to the fundamental issue the industry has, which is the need for regulatory clarity. And that exchange was very emblematic of what the industry is dealing with.
Perry Ann, I did a panel down at Virginia Tech about 4.5 years ago, and with Hester Peirce, who is actually a member, one of the SEC commissioners. This was 4.5 years ago. We talked about the urgency of getting this done. It feels like the SEC is moving at about the speed of a 100-year-old tortoise with a broken ankle.
Yeah, Commissioner Peirce spoke at an event that we hosted about a year ago, and she said, unfortunately, the SEC has made very, very little progress. There has been no regulatory guidance issued by the Securities and Exchange Commission for the digital asset ecosystem, despite the fact that industry has been calling for it for over 6 years. Coming back to that question of Ethereum, which really kicked off the entire hearing, how can it be that the Securities and Exchange Exchange Commission is taking the position that digital tokens, including Ethereum, potentially are securities, but then you have the CFTC also saying these exact same assets are commodities. How is there clarity in when you have when the agencies themselves don't agree, and even the SEC, the commissioners of the SEC, Hester Peirce being one of them, don't agree? There is not regulatory clarity in this space, despite what the chairman testified on this morning.
Well, so check this out. Apparently Susan Rice has stepped down, so she's been let go from the Biden administration, and I took that opportunity to say, hey, Joe Biden, as long as you're doing some spring cleaning, and of course this is the classic look on Gary Gensler's face when the congressman asked him about the you-know-who's 2016 campaign that he was in charge of the financing of, which really, Perry Ann Boring just said that Ethereum, the question about Ethereum was the big thing, and I think it really wasn't. The real question is, why is this guy why is he anywhere in any agency, and why was he ever allowed near any agency after the question that congressman asked? That's the real question. That's the elephant in the room nobody's talking about. By the way, here we've got this former product manager from OpenSea, which is where the NFTs are sold and all that. Former project manager from OpenSea, Nathan Chastain, has been accused of insider trading in what marks the first reported criminal case involving NFT assets. Remember when this happened, folks, because I'm calling it right now. The same thing happened with Coinbase, where they sued. The SEC went after some insider traders on Coinbase, which they should have. Well, write it down. When they did, they went after those insider traders at Coinbase. They used that as an opportunity to call certain digital assets on the Coinbase platform securities. I believe this is the case where the SEC is going to sue this guy, and in the lawsuit, write it down, they're going to call NFT securities too. I think they've been waiting for this opportunity. All right. Then there's this, is Ripple leaving the United States? Is Ripple following Coinbase's lead by leaving the United States? Well, actually it would be Ripple's lead, because Brad Garlinghouse said a long time ago that he and Chris Larson, I believe, said that they would leave the United States if they didn't get regulatory clarity. I don't know if they said if they didn't win the lawsuit or what, but it would be Coinbase following their lead. Banking giant Standard Chartered, which I think is a Ripple customer, says Bitcoin's pathway to $100,000 becoming clearer. And I think they said by like 2024. Then this is an awesome Evan Schwartz video. He was with Ripple. He and Stefan Thomas, my understanding is they created the Interledger protocol. I don't think I'd ever heard this clip right here. So let's hear it together.
So I get how this works when you have, let's say, Bitcoin and Ethereum, or two ledgers where you can, escrow money and you have smart contracts and all that stuff. But how would that work if you have something like a bank? Because, even if you have the receipt, for example, that you've given out the money as, connected, let's say, on the Bitcoin network, how can I use that to claim something from a connector from a bank?
Yeah, so how does this work with banks? Banks are very interested in adopting this. Basically, Ripple's been working with banks for 2 years now, and part of where the idea for this came out of was banks were very interested in Ripple's technology, but said, if we're interested in this, we want to see how this scales. Like, can we push millions of transactions through this per second? And then they were also concerned about privacy on a public ledger. And so as soon as we came out, so they had come to us with those concerns as we were going to them, and they were like, yeah, we're very interested in adopting your technology, but we have these two concerns. And then we came out with Interledger, and they were like, yes, concerns solved. And so now Ripple is basically hard at work while I'm here talking to you in implementing this in our product suite that we deploy at banks, with the idea that with the intention that banks will have this capability built in so that they'll be able to recognize these kind of cryptographic conditions and trigger the movement of funds.
I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that Interledger protocol looks like the missing link. Thanks.